So here's the Element RC Enduro that I built for this S100. I've been wanting to make a video, I haven't had a chance, so this is going to be a little quick overview video of it for anyone that was interested. So I just started off with the frame. I got the frame actually off my brother. It was just a bare frame. There's no suspension, no differentials, no nothing. I had to buy literally everything. I just had the frame to start off with. So to mount the transmission, I actually had to 3D print this carrier underneath here. So I actually modeled it and dropped it lower so that the linkages, which they're going to sit a little lower, but it gave me the clearance I needed for this Revo transmission to sink down lower, so that these drive shafts weren't at such a weird angle for them to actually sit in here. They would bind if there was any higher, so that worked out perfectly. These are the Traxxas, I believe the T-Max drive shafts, and for this one here I actually had to sit there and grind it down a little bit just to get this to fit and clear the flywheel that's right here, because I did try to sit this little engine lower, as low as I could, because I didn't want this to be too top heavy, and either way I had to jack the truck up. As you can see, it's basically like a monster truck. I didn't want it to tip over when crawling, and for the most part it does pretty good. It doesn't tip over, it actually stays pretty stable. For the electronics, it's same thing, servo, just like I had on my Defender. You got the reverse servo here, the disc brake, the Revo disc brake that's actuating. I did put a 13 tooth from a 16 to a 13 tooth clutch bell, because it was having a bit of a hard time on the steep climbs, climbing this weight of this truck, because it does weigh fairly good amount, especially with these portal axles. I also bought these off of Amazon. They're all CNC'd aluminum, so they weigh quite a bit. They have steel gears and all. But I mean, that's kind of one of the drawbacks of these trucks, is that they're kind of heavy. These little motors, these single cylinders, don't have a whole ton of power, and the clutches aren't the best, so they will struggle on steep climbs. So I dropped the teeth on here. Also on the main spur, it's a 40, I think, than the factory 38 tooth that the Revo transmission comes with. And if we go here to the move this over here so you guys can see the steering. So for the steering, I actually added the on axle steering, the servo that comes with the bracket. I did try to retain the factory steering that this chassis originally had. It just wasn't gonna work. I had a panhard bar that went across, and it would just run into the motor. There's just no room to fit that, so I ended up adding another link to make it a 4-link in the front, and I just added the servo there to the axle, and it works perfect. There's no issues. And as you can see, the drain for the crankcase, the oil is just barely sitting on the servo there, so that was also a little bit of a concern. These motor brackets that I 3D printed, I had to model these as well to adapt them here to get this to fit. The original design, these were just square here, but the fan blades were actually hitting that, so I had to remodel that for clearance, and now it kind of just sits in there perfect. I mean, if this bottoms out pretty well, you see how close it is to the servo, but it just barely touches. And then for the other side here, this is a catch can. I did the same similar mod that Dennis did on his, where he added the oil return, kind of like my Defender as well, where I added the oil that, you know, drains into the cam valve train and all that to oil it, and it just goes back into a little catch can. All the electronics are right here. Now the fuel tank was interesting. If anyone's building one of these, I originally had the fuel tank mounted back here, where these batteries are. It was just kind of like open here, easy for me to get access to on the rear. It wasn't level at all with the carburetor. Now this is kind of essential with these motors. If you don't level the pickup of where these fuel tanks are, they will give you kind of weird issues. Like on a full tank, it might run really rich and start bogging a lot, and as the fuel gets down, it's gonna start leaning out and kind of acting kind of funny, like it'll have no power. And if it goes at even a slight like incline, it's gonna end up just shutting off on you, almost as it runs out of fuel is what it kind of feels like. As soon as you put it back down, start it up, it's fine. So I ended up moving the fuel tank here and raising it on posts to be level with the carburetor. It made a huge difference on how this little truck runs. I mean, it runs perfect now, climbing, going down. I mean, it never shuts off, it just stays running. So that was a huge concern. And I had the same problem on my Defender too. I had the fuel tank in the back and it was giving me weird issues. I couldn't tune the engine right. I had to move it closer to the front and do the same thing, and it ran perfect after that. So if anyone's gonna build one, just make sure you level the fuel tank in line with the carburetor. It makes a big difference. The other thing is I put 2.2 tires on here. They're just big fat tires. It gives me more ground clearance and just gives me that scale look. For the suspension, how it's jacked up, these kind of fill it in. It doesn't make it look so high up in the air. Everything else is pretty much the same. These shocks I also bought on Amazon. I could put links to all this in the description for anyone that's interested. And that's pretty much it on this. Everything so far has been working great. I haven't had any issues. The transmission's been working great. It's a steel spur gear compared to the plastic, and I kind of like it better. It keeps a little bit more momentum, so when the truck's kind of going, it's kind of gives it some more torque to kind of climb through things. So that works out pretty well, and so far I haven't had any issues with this motor. It does leak a lot of oil, as everyone knows, compared to the FS200. It doesn't have the seals in it like those do, so it, after a run, it's definitely got oil all over the place that I gotta wipe down. But that's just a quick overview of the truck. The exhaust, it's another just copper piping that I also bent. I added dual exhaust, so I just got basically made a cap here with 2 ends, brazed them, and then I just kind of bent these to have dual exhaust. It's a lot louder with dual exhaust, this little motor. I had a single exhaust, sorry, on my last one, my last build of this, and it was, 50% quieter. As soon as you add a second pipe, this thing gets pretty loud. So but it sounds neat. It's more for the look, the scale look with the body. I got this Toyota Hilux body on it that I put, and it kind of just completes the whole look of it. So you mount it on there. Definitely looks a lot better. But there you go, guys. That's just a quick little overview of the truck. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below, and like and subscribe. I'm gonna have more videos eventually coming out, maybe inside cab views of my Defender, maybe some cameras on the top so you can kind of see the motor working as it goes along. I'm definitely gonna try to release more. It's just gotta get to that point where I find the time to start filming more. Thanks, guys.